The rugby union laws of the game are designed to protect fair play and make the game as even-handed and balanced as possible. And yet, when it comes to the international game, the sports showpiece, the rules of rugby have one huge, gaping, unfair open flaw. Only one team gets to field Antoine Dupont. It's amazing the influence one man can have over proceedings, as France opened up a frankly pretty good Italy team to such a degree the scoreline wound up looking far more like one of those embarrassing day gone by performances than anything we actually saw on the pitch. So how did Dupont and his fellow Frenchies carve Italy open, and why did I just say that a team who lost by 40 looked pretty good? Let's start with the cereal box-shaped maestro, as he continued to push Stephen Myler hard for the title of world's greatest player. This was a match packed with what we're going to have to call Dupont moments, but perhaps my favourite was the lead into the third try scored by Otto Vincent. With the loose ball bouncing here, 99% of rugby players would look to regather, then consider how to attack afterwards, but Dupont is scanning the Italian backfield before he's even approaching the ball. Spotting plenty of space, he hoofs it as far as he can on the half volley and makes it super difficult for Trula to judge, and the bounce just goes right over his head to Villiers. But just watch Dupont. Instead of sprinting up to chase, he hangs back, not knowing where the ball will bounce or where Villiers will need him, allowing him to pick his support line late. And then, whoa! Knowing the closest Italian defender is on the same side of him as Vincent, he pops the ball inside, blind, floated perfectly to force Vincent's line back in and under the... No, where you go? Wait, what are you doing? Where are you going? Why would you... Right, he forces Vincent's line to go back in and just on the far side of the post, I guess, for some reason. And then we have this. Dupont, once again, scanning, notices Stephen Varney is here instead of sweeping it behind, and turns to Fickou to say just a single word. He then shapes as though he's passing and stabs through instead a perfectly weighted kick. So close to try line, Italy have no choice but to rush up instead of letting a centre drop in to try and cover the chip in behind, and it's a lovely score for Fickou. And then we have this try itself. This was virtually the only time France actually punctured the Italian defence first phase, as a nice move gets as far as Fickou, then Vincent runs a brilliant dummy line, his body language really selling that he's getting the ball. This leaves Italy roughly numbered up. Sporandio should cover the two outside comfortably, so that just leaves Teddy Thomas 1-on-1 in this channel with the 13. However, this 13 is Juan Ignacio Brex, who has shuffled out in order to accommodate Carlo Canna coming off the bench. And look, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Brex is a good player and he had a generally good game, but he's so slow. You could add it negotiations to his surname and it would make a lot of sense. Thomas gets on the outside and carves right through, and Trula positions himself really well to cover both Thomas and the two men outside him in support. However, he didn't count on one thing. After throwing the initial pass, Dupont casually jogs across until Thomas begins to put his foot down. Dupont anticipates the break and sprints ahead, positioning himself once again perfectly, take the pass and run it in, actually under the post this time. He understands rugby really well. He knows that between the posts is good. And whilst he doesn't anticipate this break by Jalabert, he adjusts immediately, getting himself into the perfect support position, threading the needle to be near the ball carrier, away from the defence. Canna comes across, but he gives the pass to Thomas, presumably just to screw over my fantasy team. And then, because Fabien Gaultier is boring, he brings him off. But France do continue to play some lovely rugby. This is a super classic score, featuring a very good finish by Thomas, as France use their dominant scrum to suck in defenders and launch an attack. Launch, Fitch and Garbisi create this overlap. But this wasn't the only little set piece trick in this corner. So those laws of the game designed to make the game fair and blah 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 state that until the ball leaves the line out or the resulting maul, only players who are part of the line out can be in the zone where the line out takes place. So France put winger Teddy Thomas in the line out, with the idea being once the maul is formed, he can slide out here, and seeing as all the Italian players allowed to be in this window are forwards, they'll just join the maul. Thomas instead can linger here, and Dupont can fix Varney and put Thomas away in the corner. However, Italy do really well to splinter and turn the maul, meaning France instead need to look to the open side. Thomas wraps around and would have scored in the opposite wing if it weren't for the fact he was having one of his classic moments of just not being bothered whilst playing international rugby. This wild 80-minute feast of French fun led to the revival of rugby's most tedious annual debate. Should we kick Italy out of the Six Nations? And the answer? You want my answer? Shut up. There's some really good rugby going on in front of you. Let's talk about that instead. There were some really sharp pieces of attack by the Azuri in the first half, such as Lamaro here running a doubly efficient line. Yes, he holds his man, but he then lingers in the French defensive line. This leads to Mohamed Hawass, France's least athletic player, drifting harder and more aggressively as he can see, kind of feel in the corner of his vision. There's someone there, there's someone close behind him, except it's not a Frenchman, it's a teammate there to just shepherd Brex through the gap with a simple step. And then Stephen Varney, 19 years of age, and on only his second start for his country, showing Dupont the dummy and putting Ioane away for what should have been a try. However, whilst Varney showed just why he could well go on to be such an important part of Italy's future in the Six Nations, Saturday for Italy was all about fly half and owner of that increasingly iconic open mouth, Paolo Garbisi. Now, I've been a fan of Garbisi as a rugby player and a talent since I first saw him play for Italy under-20s and appreciated Franco Smith's bold call of building for the future by blooding him. But the man has continued to improve game on game until one particular passage of play in Rome this week made me sit up and really say, shit, Paolo Garbisi is going to be properly special. So the second this maul creaks to a halt, the Italian backs call it out and begin to run what would be a really nice move, but Monty Ioane runs his line a split second late, and instead of threading a crisp pass in behind, Varney has to lob it over the top of his head to Brex. Lamaro picks a really nice line to fix Fiku, but Ioane's wasted half second has bought France a full second to drift across. Garbisi's pass is crisp, but Vincent is able to track across, meaning there's no longer the 3-on-1 Italy almost created, and from the moment Zanon hits the ground, Garbisi goes nuclear. The French defence is somewhat disorganised, and Garbisi is just looking to have a forward headed up in this kind of area around the Guinness logo. However, Dupont being Dupont, he cuts off all the options superbly, so Garbisi turns his body to take the tackle. Knowing the opposition 10 is too tasty a dish for the French forwards to resist, two of them bite in, and he presents the ball back before he's even hit the ground, allowing Italy to generate a 2-second ruck. France are left here, for such a quick ball, only their backs are on the blind side, none of them used to this positioning, so Varney fixes Jalibert and Negri makes a great carry through the gap opened up. Garbisi, meanwhile, has got right back up to his feet and screamed for a teammate to go into scrum off, continue playing quickly. France still haven't reset from the maul and have only the slower forwards and the laziest man in the Six Nations out wide, so they spread it and keep playing with this pace. After the way Dupont cut them off a moment ago, Italy adjust their shape. Garbisi hiding himself in what coaches like to call the boot, this kind of, just behind the pod here. He draws Cretin and drops it off to Canone, who brilliantly fixes Aldrit. Dupont has flown up again to stop Italy going wide, but the Azuri and Garbisi have essentially baited him, firing BG through the hole his blitz creates. Garbisi is following him behind, always alert, then offloads himself. This Italian improvisation has left them unstructured, so Garbisi orders a carry whilst they're resetting. This gives them quick ball once again, so France are thin around the ruck and Garbisi varies the play by attacking the line. He looks both ways for the offload, but unfortunately throws out the back rather than to Varney on the inside. However, Italy recover. Garbisi then steps in once again, spreads it wide and clears out the ruck himself. Varney plays the ball super quickly to keep the momentum going whilst Garbisi's on the floor, but the moment he gets up, he's looking both ways and shouting instructions to a scrum off again. As Italy go through the phases, we can see him point out to Varney exactly who he should pass to and tell Sperandino to wrap around him. Italy set two pods here, one of them to generate quick ball, the other to get in France's eye line as they look to go wide again. Sperandino gives Italy an extra option, but he doesn't really sell his dummy line, making the tackle fairly easy, but the ball still fast. They keep playing until Garbisi spots something. He turns first to the blindside wing Ioane and then to the rest of the team and barks orders for a multi-phase move. He takes out the guard and offloads to Ioane, hopping right back up to his feet as the players he shouted at second take position for the next phase. Him out the back, looking wide. Now there isn't a wide shot frustratingly that shows this, and I've had to go by counting people peeling around the ruck and what we can see and, counting. But if this ball leaves this ruck, Italy would have had a 7-on-4. Just 15 metres out from the line. As it is, penalties given, Italy kick it, take 3 points. But whereas other Italians applaud the penalty, Garbisi is gutted, knowing he had something more to come here. If anyone's watched my video on George Ford, Garbisi, for this passage of play, did essentially what Ford does. He went from dummy chucking novelty act to masterminding a play that opened up a world-class Shaun Edwards defence over 19 phases. Garbisi isn't yet able to do this for a full 80 minutes, but my God, has he come such a long way since his debut just 14 weeks ago. At this rate, Paolo Garbisi will be Dan Carter with an open gob by June. And so, if Italy, have a young 10 this good and are able to string together what I think genuinely might have been the best attacking set of the weekend, why were they on the wrong end of that 40-point margin. I think the answer is best demonstrated by the opening try, eventually finished by Dylan Cretin. France run a nice backline move, but Italy defend this perfectly. They take out each man and force Dylan to rush the pass, and it leaves Thomas in a crowded space with Italy having drifted across. They've got this covered. Except as anyone who's ever watched Teddy Thomas before knows, bafflingly, the less appears to be on, the more dangerous he is. And a classic your man from both Brex and Negri allows Thomas to get up to speed and burst the line. From here, Italy scramble as Lazzaroni and then Trula pull off good tackles, but France generate quick ball and can spread it wide. However, it's from here, once Villiers hits the ground, that the problems become evident, as both Paolo Garbisi and Marco Zanin, their fly half and their outside centre, are here on the blind side, doing nothing really. These are two players who should be key parts of leading the defence, and both probably located between or on the far side of the post. But as the phases tick on, neither of them try to wrap around or rejoin the main line. They just stay in this area. Neither of them communicate that other players need to spread out and try and make up for the two of them being caught on the wrong side by circumstance. And even when debutant Juan Ignacio Brex screams and shouts for them to come over, they can't get there before Cretin crashes up and nobody is there to prevent him reaching out to try and score. Throughout the game, when running their coached defensive shape, Italy held it well. They were good defensively, with the one exception of the Dupont try. But if the line was broken, a big bust made, or a turnover or kick chase, or something along those lines, they fell apart completely, unable to reorganise until either France scored or set piece gave them the time to do so. As such, Italy's problem is not their defence. It's their communication. Anyone who's played any level of competitive rugby, even touch, to a reasonable standard, can tell you keeping a defensive line is at least 80% talking, chatting, making sure you have each other's backs. But anyone who also remembers their first step into senior rugby, or their first game at a new club where you don't know all your teammates yet, will also remember sometimes it's a kind of awkward, difficult thing to do. And double that if you're a 19-year-old stepping into your international team for the first time. The most experienced man in that Italian backline on Saturday was Luca Sparradino, who has 8 caps. The others had 16 between them. This is an experience issue. You give these Italian backs more time to bed in and learn their responsibilities, and we'll start to see their defence learn to translate their solidity on first and second phase into phases 10, 15, 20. Just as Garbisi bossed it with the ball in hand on Saturday, Italy just need to find someone willing and able to play that kind of role in defence, as at the minute none of their midfield options, Garbisi, Canna, Breck, Zan and Allen, are the kind of player known for their defence or who really organise those around them. Once Italy have that in place, once somebody steps up and the backs begin to chat more without the ball as they grow in confidence in that area, organising so we don't have two crucial defenders playing no role on their own try line again, we will see a scoreline like Saturday's drop almost as if by magic by 20 or 30 points. Experience will also help the likes of Varney begin to cut out these panicky little passes. The criticism that picking these kids won't help Italy win in this Six Nations is fair, but compare how reasonably quiet Garbisi was in his first 2 caps to how vocal he was when Italy had the ball this week. 2020 and 2021 could be the 2 years Italy need to build a squad that is genuinely competitive for years to come, rather than pulling off the odd one-off game. They may not get Antoine Dupont, but they should keep the rest of the competition as even and fair and balanced as possible for Italy. But before we go anywhere, right? Just time for a new regular segment, the Six Nations, the pointless Italian innovation of the week. Hey, you know how teams normally start their 2 best props, and then around half an hour to go, when those props start to get tired, they replace them with 2 other props to see out the game? Yeah, well, this week, Italy coach Franco Smith decided to turn that on its head with a terrific new pointless innovation, as he started his 2 second choice props, then, as a pre-arranged call, brought both of them off on the half-hour mark to be replaced by Italy's first choice pairing of Zalocchi and Fischetti. The idea is clearly a kind of twist on the Razzie Erasmus bomb squad idea, in that this means their best props will be fresh in the final quarter of the game while still playing the majority of the match. Italy essentially trying to work around the fact their squad is not as deep as South Africa's, whilst also allowing to have good players on the pitch in the final quarter. That's not a lie, it didn't really work on Saturday, but it is an idea that absolutely could. And I'm looking forward to seeing if Smith sticks with it, or if anyone else tries to nick it. A team like Australia, Ireland or Wales, who have pretty good replacement props, but they're, nonetheless behind the starters for a reason, may be the ideal candidates to steal it. That is game 1 done. We now move on to the 2 really exciting results on the weekend, as England lost to Scotland at Twickenham for the first time in 38 years, and Wales managed to pull off what was ultimately an upset against Ireland in Cardiff. Those are coming next over the next few days. I'm doing them in the order they were played for, ease's sake. I want to congratulate Philu, who was top of the Squidge Fantasy League this weekend. Congratulations. It's quite tight at the top. I'm around 24. So anyone in those top 20 odd positions, well done. Fair play. We will see you next for the England-Scotland game. That's coming in a few days. There's also a podcast on the 2011 World Cup if you want to look at that. We had a former Canada player, Connor Trainer, on last week. There's loads more going on. Please have a poke around the channel, and I'll see you in a couple of days' time.